Mia's hands trembled as she stared at the plate in front of the man at table 7. Grilled salmon. She had brought him grilled salmon, but his order was steak, medium rare. Her stomach dropped as every conversation in the restaurant died. The entire dining room had gone silent the moment he arrived, flanked by men in black suits with cold eyes. Now those eyes were on her. She opened her mouth to apologize, but before she could speak, the man looked up. His dark eyes locked onto hers, and something shifted in his expression. "Maybe fate got it right," he said, his voice low and dangerous, yet oddly gentle. Mia's heart stopped. Who was this man? And why did one wrong order feel like it had just changed everything? If you want to discover how this story began, and what happened after this moment, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one. Mia had been on her feet for 14 hours straight. Her shift at Romano's Fine Dining started at 5 in the evening, and now, at nearly midnight, her lower back screamed with every step. But she couldn't afford to slow down. Not when her daughter Sophie's daycare bill was due in 3 days. Not when the electricity company had sent a final notice. Not when the tiny apartment in Brooklyn barely qualified as safe. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and balanced 3 plates on her left arm, a skill perfected over 2 years of waitressing. The kitchen was chaos tonight. Chef Marco was screaming at the line cooks in rapid Italian, and orders were backing up. Mia moved through the organized chaos with practiced efficiency, delivering orders to tables 6, 8, and 9 before returning to grab the next round. "Table 7, Mia," the hostess Jessica whispered urgently, her eyes wide. "VIP. Don't mess this up." Mia glanced toward the back corner booth. The restaurant had cleared a path, and she could see why. 6 men in perfectly tailored black suits stood at attention around a single table. In the center sat a man who made her breath catch despite herself. He was devastatingly handsome. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, a crisp white shirt under a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual rent. But it wasn't his looks that made her pulse quicken. It was the way everyone in the restaurant had suddenly become hyper-aware of his presence, the way even Chef Marco had stopped yelling, the way the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained power. She grabbed the plate from the pass. Steak, medium rare with roasted vegetables, table 7, easy enough. But when she reached the kitchen again 10 minutes later, her mind was spinning with worry about Sophie's upcoming parent-teacher conference, and she grabbed the wrong plate. Grilled salmon with lemon butter sauce, table 7. She didn't realize her mistake until she set it down in front of him. The silence that followed was deafening. Mia's heart plummeted into her stomach as she stared at the salmon. Wrong, completely wrong. Her hands began to shake. This was the VIP table. The table that could get her fired with a single complaint. The table that everyone had warned her about. "I'm so sorry," she began, reaching for the plate. "This isn't your order." "I'll fix it right." "Leave it." His voice stopped her cold. It was deep, measured, with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to being questioned. Mia's eyes snapped up to meet his. They were dark brown, almost black in the dim lighting, and they were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "But sir, you ordered the—" "I know what I ordered." He leaned back in his chair, and the movement was predatory, controlled. But maybe fate got it right. Mia blinked. Around them, his men shifted slightly, clearly as surprised as she was. The nearest one, a mountain of muscle with a scar across his cheek, looked like he wanted to intervene, but didn't dare. "I don't understand," Mia said quietly, her professionalism warring with her confusion. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that might have been a smile. "You work 2 jobs, don't you?" The question caught her off guard. How did you— Your shoes." He nodded toward her feet. "Different from what you wore when you served coffee at Sunrise Cafe this morning. You changed them before coming here." Mia's blood ran cold. He had been at the cafe. She served dozens of customers every morning. She had no memory of him, but he had noticed her, watched her, known her schedule. "I'm sorry, sir. I should get your correct order." "Raphael." His eyes never left hers. "My name is Raphael Castillo, and you're Mia Bennett." Now her heart was racing for a different reason entirely. How did he know her full name? The restaurant only required first names on badges. Fear crept up her spine, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Mr. Castillo, I'll bring you the steak immediately." "Sit down, Mia." "I can't. I'm working." Sit down. It wasn't loud, but the command in his voice was absolute. One of his men pulled out the chair across from Raphael. Mia glanced toward the kitchen, but Chef Marco was deliberately looking away. No help there. She sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Raphael studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "How much do you owe?" he asked. "Excuse me?" "The bills. The late notices." "How much?" Mia's throat tightened. "That's none of your business." $42,000. He said it like he was reading her coffee order. "Medical bills from your daughter's hospital stay 2 years ago, credit card debt from trying to keep up, rent arrears." "Am I close?" Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Who are you?" "Someone who can make all of that disappear." He picked up his fork and took a bite of the salmon she'd brought by mistake. "This is excellent, by the way. Better than the steak would have been." "I don't need charity," Mia said, her voice shaking but firm. "Good, because I'm not offering it." Raphael set down his fork and leaned forward. "I'm offering you a job. I have 2 jobs. You'll quit both. Work for me instead. Personal assistant. $50,000 a year, health insurance, housing provided." Mia's mind reeled. 50,000. That was more than double what she made combined. But nothing in life was free, especially not from men who made entire restaurants go silent when they walked in. "What kind of assistant?" she asked carefully. "The legitimate kind." His eyes darkened. "I'm not what you're thinking, but I am someone who has enemies. Working for me means living in my home, being under my protection. It's not negotiable. I have a daughter. I know. Sophie, 4 years old. Loves dinosaurs. She'll have her own room. Access to the best schools in New York." He paused. "She'll be safe, Mia. Safer than she is now." How did he know about Sophie? About the dinosaurs? The fear she'd been suppressing surged back, but with it came something else. Curiosity. And beneath that, a desperate, treacherous hope. "Why me?" she whispered. Raphael was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Because you brought me the wrong order. And when you realized your mistake, you didn't make excuses. You didn't panic. You tried to fix it immediately. That's integrity." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "You have 24 hours to decide. My driver will be outside your apartment at 8 p.m. tomorrow. If you're there, we'll talk details. If not, your debts will still be paid, and you'll never see me again." He walked past her, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker. Danger, power, a world she didn't understand. His men followed like shadows. Mia sat frozen in the empty booth, her mind spinning. Her manager appeared beside her, his face pale. "What did Rafael Castillo want with you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who is he?" Mia asked. Her manager's expression answered before his words did. "He's the man who owns half of New York. And you don't say no to him. Not if you want to stay safe." Mia looked down at the salmon still sitting on the table. Maybe fate got it right. Maybe it had just destroyed her life. She wouldn't know until 8 p.m. tomorrow. Mia didn't sleep. She lay in her cramped bedroom, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, while Sophie snored softly in the twin bed beside hers. The apartment was too small for separate rooms, but it was all she could afford. Every creak of the building made her jump. Every car that passed outside made her wonder if Rafael Castillo's men were watching. By 7 a.m., she'd made her decision 3 different times. Yes, no, maybe. At the cafe, she burned herself twice on the espresso machine because she couldn't focus. Mrs. Chen, her favorite regular, asked if she was feeling all right. Mia lied and said she was fine. How could she explain that a man who apparently owned half of New York had offered to change her entire life over a plate of salmon? She picked up Sophie from daycare at 4 p.m. Her daughter's face lit up when she saw her, and guilt twisted in Mia's chest. Sophie deserved better than this. Better than a mother who worked herself to exhaustion. Better than a tiny apartment with mold in the bathroom. Better than wearing second-hand clothes and eating pasta 4 nights a week because it was cheap. "Mommy, look!" Sophie held up a drawing of a T-Rex. "Miss Amanda said it's really good." "It's beautiful, baby." Mia kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo. Whatever she decided tonight would affect Sophie more than anyone. That thought terrified her more than Rafael Castillo's dark eyes and dangerous presence. At 7:30, Mia stood in front of her closet, staring at her limited options. If she was going to meet with him, If, she reminded herself firmly, she should probably wear something better than her waitress uniform or yoga pants. She settled on a simple black dress that she wore to job interviews. Professional, unremarkable. Sophie was playing with her dinosaur figures on the floor, making them roar at each other. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door had agreed to watch her for a few hours. The elderly woman had asked no questions, which Mia appreciated more than she could say. At 7:55, Mia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The car is downstairs. No pressure. The choice is yours. Her hands shook as she read the message. The choice is yours. Was it really? Men like Rafael Castillo didn't make offers without expectations, but then again men like Rafael Castillo didn't usually pay attention to struggling waitresses who brought them the wrong order. She kissed Sophie goodbye, promised Mrs. Rodriguez she'd be back before midnight, and walked down the 4 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again. The evening air was humid, thick with the smell of garbage and distant rain. The car was impossible to miss. A black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows, so pristine it looked like it had rolled off the showroom floor 5 minutes ago. A man in a dark suit stood beside the rear door. He nodded once when he saw her. "Miss Bennett, please." He opened the door. Mia hesitated. This was it, the point of no return. She thought about the stack of bills on her kitchen counter, thought about Sophie's upcoming dentist appointment she couldn't afford, thought about the way her daughter's eyes had dimmed the last time Mia had to say no to a new toy. She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and money. Raphael sat in the back seat, his attention on a tablet in his hands. He didn't look up immediately, and Mia used the moment to study him. In the close confines of the car, he seemed even more imposing. His shoulders were broad, his presence filling the space effortlessly. The tattoo she'd glimpsed last night peeked above his collar, some kind of script in a language she didn't recognize. "You came," he said finally, setting aside the tablet. His eyes met hers, and she felt that same jolt of electricity she'd experienced in the restaurant. "I came to talk. That's all." "Fair enough." He pressed a button and the privacy screen rose between them and the driver. The car began to move, smooth and silent. "Ask me anything." "Why me?" It was the same question from last night, but she needed a better answer. "You could hire anyone. Someone qualified, someone who actually knows how to be a personal assistant." "I don't need someone qualified. I need someone I can trust." Raphael's jaw tightened. "Most people in my world are there for what they can take. Power, money, status. You don't want any of that. You don't know what I want, don't I?" He tilted his head. "You want Sophie to have opportunities. You want to stop drowning in debt. You want to sleep without wondering if you can make rent next month. Am I wrong?" No, he wasn't wrong, but admitting it felt like exposing her jugular to a predator. "What exactly would this job entail?" she asked instead. "Managing my schedule, taking calls, accompanying me to meetings occasionally. Nothing illegal if that's what you're worried about." He paused. "I won't lie to you, Mia. My business dealings aren't always conventional, but I keep the dangerous part separate. You wouldn't be involved in any of that. And the protection part, you said I'd have to live in your home. I have enemies. Anyone close to me becomes a target." His expression darkened. "If you work for me, you and Sophie will live in my estate in Westchester. Private security, safe. That sounds like a prison. It's a 30-acre property with a pool, a library, and more space than you've ever had in your life. Sophie can run around without you worrying she'll step on a needle in the hallway." His voice softened. "I'm not trying to control you, Mia. I'm trying to protect you." The car turned down a tree-lined street, and Mia realized they'd left Brooklyn behind. The buildings were getting larger, more expensive. Iron gates and manicured lawns. "Where are we going?" she asked, tension creeping into her voice. "I want to show you something." 10 minutes later, the car pulled through gates that opened automatically. The driveway seemed to stretch forever, winding through perfectly landscaped gardens. And then the house came into view. Calling it a house was an understatement. It was a mansion, white stone with tall windows that glowed with warm light. Elegant, intimidating, beautiful. "This is where you live," Mia breathed. "This is where you would live." Raphael opened his door and stepped out. After a moment's hesitation, Mia followed. The night air was cooler here, cleaner. She could hear crickets and the distant sound of water. Raphael led her up the front steps and through a door that was probably worth more than her entire building. The interior took her breath away. High ceilings with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, art that looked like it belonged in museums. But despite the grandeur, it felt empty, like a showroom nobody actually lived in. Sophie's room would be on the second floor, Raphael said, leading her up a sweeping staircase. East wing, near yours. He opened a door, and Mia's heart clenched. The room was enormous, bigger than her entire apartment. There was a bed with a white canopy, a bookshelf filled with children's books, and in the corner, a collection of stuffed dinosaurs that made her eyes burn with tears. "How did you—" she whispered. "I pay attention." Raphael stood in the doorway watching her reaction. "The job is real, Mia. So is the protection. So is my promise that you and Sophie will never have to worry about money again." Mia turned to face him. "What do you really want from me?" For the first time, something unguarded crossed his expression. Loneliness, maybe, or exhaustion. It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. "Honestly, I don't know yet, but when you brought me that wrong order, you looked at me like I was just a man. Not a title, not a threat, just a man." He stepped closer, and she could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Do you know how rare that is?" "I didn't know who you were," she admitted. "Exactly." His voice dropped. "Say yes, Mia, let me help you, let me—" His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, and his expression went from open to closed in an instant. "I have to take this. Marco will show you the rest of the house." He disappeared down the hall, already speaking in rapid Italian. Mia stood alone in the room full of dinosaurs, her mind racing. This was insane. She barely knew this man, but he knew her, knew Sophie, knew what they needed before she'd even asked. The question wasn't whether she needed this opportunity. It was whether she could trust the man offering it, and whether the price of that trust would be more than she could afford to pay. Mia spent the next 3 days in a state of controlled chaos. Raphael had given her a week to decide, but she knew her answer after that first night. How could she say no? She'd signed the paperwork on Tuesday, a contract that felt surreal in its generosity. 50,000 annual salary, health insurance that covered everything, including Sophie's pre-existing conditions, a signing bonus that cleared her debts entirely. She'd cried in the lawyer's office, and the stern-faced woman had simply passed her a box of tissues and said, "Mr. Castillo takes care of his people." By Friday, Mia and Sophie were moving into the estate. Sophie's reaction to her new room was worth every moment of uncertainty. Her daughter had screamed with joy, literally jumping on the canopy bed and hugging every single stuffed dinosaur. "Mommy, is this really ours?" she'd asked, her eyes wide as dinner plates. "Yes, baby, really ours." Now Sunday evening, Mia stood in her own bedroom, a space 3 times larger than her entire previous apartment, trying to process her new reality. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub, a walk-in closet that was currently almost empty because she owned maybe 15 items of clothing total. A knock on her door made her jump. "Come in," she called, expecting Maria, the housekeeper, who'd been showing her around. It was Raphael. He leaned against the doorframe, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black Henley that did nothing to hide the muscular build beneath. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered. More human somehow, less intimidating. "Settling in?" he asked. "Still feels like I'm going to wake up." Mia crossed her arms, suddenly aware of her own casual appearance, leggings and an oversized sweater. "Sophie loves her room. Thank you for the dinosaurs." "She's welcome." Raphael's expression softened. "I heard her laughing earlier. It's been a long time since this house had that sound." There was something painful in the way he said it. Mia wanted to ask, but wasn't sure she had the right. They were employer and employee, nothing more. "Your schedule tomorrow?" Raphael continued. "All business now. We'll go over the basics. I have a meeting at 9, conference call at 11. There's a charity gala Friday night I'll need you to attend." "Attend?" Mia's stomach flipped. "Like as your assistant?" "As my guest." He must have seen her panic because he added quickly, "You'll need a dress. Maria will take you shopping tomorrow afternoon. Put it on the house account." "Raphael, I can't." "You can and you will. It's part of the job." His tone left no room for argument. "The people at these events will want to know who you are. Your story is simple. You're my personal assistant, nothing more. Some will try to get information out of you. Don't give them anything." "Are you always this paranoid?" The corner of his mouth lifted. "I'm always this careful. There's a difference." Before Mia could respond, Sophie's voice echoed from down the hall. "Mommy, come see." Raphael straightened. "I should let you—" "No, it's fine. She probably wants to show me the dinosaurs again for the 15th time. Mia started toward the door, then paused. "Do you want to— I mean, you don't have to, but—" She trailed off, feeling stupid. Why would a man like Rafael Castillo want to look at a 4-year-old's toy collection? But he followed her anyway. Sophie was in her room, arranging the stuffed dinosaurs in what appeared to be a very serious parade formation. She looked up when they entered, and her face split into a grin. "Mommy, Rafe, look, they're having a marching band." Rafe. Not Mr. Castillo, just Rafe. Mia shot Raphael a nervous glance, but he didn't seem bothered. In fact, he crouched down to Sophie's level, studying the arrangement with genuine interest. "That's an impressive formation," he said seriously. "Is the T-Rex the leader?" "Obviously." Sophie rolled her eyes like it was the most basic fact in the world. "T-Rex is always the leader." "Obviously," Raphael echoed, and Mia could hear the smile in his voice. For the next 10 minutes, she watched in amazement as Raphael, notorious Mafia Boss, owner of half of New York, the man who made restaurants go silent with his presence, sat on the floor and helped her daughter arrange plastic dinosaurs. He asked questions, made suggestions, laughed when Sophie insisted the Stegosaurus needed to be the drummer because of its tail spikes. This was not the man she'd expected. When Sophie finally yawned and started rubbing her eyes, Raphael stood smoothly. "I think your parade needs to rest for tomorrow's performance." "Okay." Sophie hugged her T-Rex. "Will you come see it tomorrow?" Something crossed Raphael's face. Surprise, maybe, or something deeper. "If your mom says it's okay." Both of them looked at Mia. She nodded, not trusting her voice. After Sophie was tucked in and the lights were dimmed, Mia walked Raphael back into the hallway. They stood in the soft glow of the wall sconces, and the silence between them felt heavy with unspoken things. "Thank you," Mia said quietly. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Raphael's eyes searched hers. "She's a good kid, Mia. You've done an incredible job with her. I've done my best. It's never felt like enough." "It is." His hand lifted like he wanted to touch her, then dropped back to his side. "You're enough. Both of you." The air between them shifted, charged. Mia's heart started beating faster, and she couldn't blame it on fear this time. This was something else entirely. Something dangerous in a completely different way. "Raphael," she began, but didn't know how to finish. "Good night, Mia." He took a step back and the moment broke. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's a long day." She watched him walk down the hall toward the west wing, where his private quarters were. Watched until he disappeared around the corner. Then she leaned back against the wall and tried to catch her breath. This job was supposed to be simple, professional, a way to provide for Sophie. But the way Raphael had looked at her daughter, with genuine warmth, the way he'd looked at her, like she was something precious and breakable and worth protecting, nothing about this was going to be simple at all. Later that night, Mia was awakened by voices. Low, urgent, speaking rapid Italian. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. The clock read 2:17 a.m. She crept to her door and opened it a crack. Raphael stood in the hallway with Marco, the scarred man from the restaurant, and 2 other security personnel. They were all armed. "Came through the south gate," Marco was saying. "We got him before he reached the main house." "Was he alone?" Raphael's voice was cold steel, far as we can tell. "But boss, they're getting bolder. They're getting desperate." Raphael rubbed his jaw. "Double the perimeter guards." "I want—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes cutting to Mia's partially open door. Their gazes locked and she froze. "Go back to bed, Mia," he said, his voice gentler than his expression. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Someone had tried to get onto the property. Someone dangerous enough that Raphael's men carried guns and spoke about perimeters and threats. Mia closed the door and climbed back into bed. But sleep was impossible. She thought about Sophie in the room down the hall, sleeping peacefully, surrounded by stuffed dinosaurs. She thought about the life she'd left behind, terrifying in its poverty, but at least familiar. She thought about Raphael standing in the hallway, looking at her like her safety mattered more than whatever crisis he was managing. And she wondered, not for the first time, what she'd really signed up for, what price came with protection, and whether she'd be able to pay it when the bill came due. The charity gala was everything Mia had feared and more. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered with crystal and gold, packed with New York's wealthiest elite. Women in designer gowns that cost more than cars, men in tuxedos with watches that could fund Sophie's college education, and Mia, wearing a midnight blue dress that Maria had helped her choose, feeling like an imposter in borrowed finery. Raphael's hand rested on the small of her back as they navigated the crowd. He was devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, drawing eyes from every corner of the room, but his attention stayed fixed on her, guiding her through introductions, deflecting invasive questions, silently communicating that she was under his protection. "Mr. Castillo," a silver-haired man approached, champagne in hand. "I didn't know you were bringing a date." "Robert." Raphael's smile didn't reach his eyes. "This is Mia Bennett, my personal assistant." "Assistant?" Robert's gaze slid over Mia in a way that made her skin crawl. "Of course. How efficient." Mia felt Raphael's hand tense against her back. "If you'll excuse us," he said coolly, already steering her away. "That was Senator Hawthorne," Raphael murmured once they were out of earshot. "Bought and paid for by the Giordano family. Don't trust anything he says." "How many people here are in your world?" Mia asked quietly. "Half of them. The other half are in someone else's." Raphael accepted 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter, handing one to her. "Welcome to New York high society, where everyone's dirty and everyone pretends they're not." Before Mia could respond, a woman in a scarlet dress appeared beside them. She was stunning, tall, blonde, with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. "Raphael," she purred, ignoring Mia entirely. "It's been too long." "Victoria." Raphael's expression went carefully neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here. Daddy's on the charity board, you know how it is." Victoria's eyes finally slid to Mia, dismissive and calculating. "And who is this?" "Mia Bennett, my personal assistant." "How lovely." Victoria's smile was poison-sweet. "Raphael, we should catch up properly. Alone." "I'm exactly where I want to be," Raphael said flatly. Victoria's smile faltered. For a moment, something ugly flashed across her face, rage, humiliation. Then she recovered, laughing like he'd made a joke. "Of course, enjoy your evening." She disappeared into the crowd, but Mia felt the weight of her stare from across the room for the rest of the night. "Ex-girlfriend?" Mia asked once they'd moved to a quieter corner. "Ex-fiancé. 5 years ago." Raphael's jaw tightened. "It ended badly. She doesn't seem over it." "Victoria's not used to losing." He looked down at Mia, and something in his expression softened. "You're doing well tonight. I know this isn't easy. Everyone's staring at us." "They're staring at you." His voice dropped. "You look beautiful, Mia." Heat flooded her cheeks. It was the first time he'd said anything remotely personal, and it hit her like a physical touch. "Thank you," she managed. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and polite conversation. By 11 p.m. Mia's feet ached, and her face hurt from smiling. Raphael seemed to sense her exhaustion because he leaned down to murmur, "Let's get you home." Home. The estate was starting to feel like that, which terrified and comforted her in equal measure. They were almost to the exit when a man stepped into their path. He was shorter than Raphael, but built like a tank, with cold eyes and a smile that looked carved into his face. Castillo. The man's accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. "Leaving so soon?" Raphael's entire body went rigid. His hand on Mia's back pressed slightly, a warning. "Victor, I didn't see your name on the guest list." "Last-minute addition." Victor's eyes slid to Mia. "Who is this delicate creature?" "None of your concern." "Everything about you concerns me." Victor took a step closer, and Mia felt Raphael shift, positioning himself between them. "You've been expanding into territory that doesn't belong to you. My employer is displeased. Your employer can take it up with me directly." Raphael's voice was ice. "Not here, not now." "Ah, but here and now is perfect." Victor's smile widened. "So public, so civilized. Who would dare cause a scene?" Mia's heart was racing. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she understood enough. This was a threat. This man represented the dangers Raphael had warned her about. "We're leaving," Raphael said. "Move." "Or what?" Victor laughed. "Or you'll make a scene at a charity gala. The great Raphael Castillo losing his temper in front of all these witnesses. That's not your style." Raphael's hand moved to his phone. Within seconds, Marco appeared from somewhere in the crowd, flanked by 2 other men. They surrounded Victor without a word. "Next time you want to talk," Raphael said quietly, dangerously, "make an appointment." He guided Mia past Victor and toward the exit. She didn't breathe normally until they were in the SUV, pulling away from the hotel. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Raphael said, staring out the window. "Who was he?" "Victor Kozlov. Works for the Volkov family. Russian mob." Raphael's hands were fisted on his thighs. "They've been trying to muscle into my shipping operations for months. Are you in danger?" "Always." He looked at her then, and his expression was raw. "This is why I needed you to understand. Why I need you protected. Anyone associated with me becomes a target. Raphael, I should have thought this through better." His voice was rough with something that sounded like regret. "Bringing you into this world, putting you and Sophie at risk. You've given us safety and stability," Mia said firmly. "More than we've ever had. At what cost?" He reached across the seat, and his hand covered hers. The touch was electric, sending heat racing up her arm. "Mia, if anything happened to you or Sophie because of me, I couldn't—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching. Mia turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. It was bold, probably stupid, but sitting in the dark car, watching this powerful man struggle with the weight of protecting her, she couldn't help herself. "We're okay," she said softly. "We're safe with you." Raphael's eyes dropped to their joined hands, then back to her face. "You shouldn't trust me this easily." "Maybe not. But I do." The car pulled through the estate gates, and the moment stretched between them like a thread pulled taut. Raphael didn't let go of her hand until they reached the house. Inside, Maria informed them that Sophie had gone to bed 2 hours earlier, without any fuss. Mia checked on her daughter anyway, finding her curled up with her T-Rex, peaceful and safe. When she returned to the hallway, Raphael was waiting. Still in his tuxedo, tie loosened, looking like temptation personified. "Thank you," Mia said, "for tonight, for everything. You don't have to thank me." He stepped closer and she could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker. "Mia, I need you to understand something." "What?" "The way I feel about you." He stopped, struggling with the words. "It's not professional. It hasn't been from the moment you brought me that wrong order and looked at me like I was worth smiling at." Mia's breath caught. "Raphael, I won't act on it. You work for me. You're here because you needed help, not because I wanted—" He dragged a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Christo, I'm saying this badly. You're saying it perfectly." Mia reached up, her hand trembling, and touched his cheek. "Because I feel it too." Raphael went completely still. Then slowly, carefully, he covered her hand with his. "You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying." Her heart was thundering, but her voice was steady. "I'm saying I see you, Raphael. Not the reputation, not the power, you. And what I see is someone who plays with dinosaurs with my daughter, who notices when I'm overwhelmed, who threatens Russian mobsters to keep me safe. Mia." Her name was a prayer and a warning. "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just needed you to know that whatever this is between us, you're not alone in feeling it." For a long moment, Raphael just looked at her. Then he turned his head and pressed a kiss to her palm. The gesture was so tender, so intimate, that tears burned behind her eyes. "Good night, Mia," he whispered. "Good night." She watched him walk away for the second time, and this time she knew with absolute certainty she was falling for him, for this dangerous, complicated, impossibly gentle man who'd walked into her life over a wrong order of salmon, and she had no idea if that would save them both or destroy everything. 3 weeks after the gala, everything changed. Mia had fallen into a rhythm at the estate. Mornings with Sophie, breakfast playing in the gardens, reading books in the library, afternoons working with Raphael, managing schedules, taking calls, learning the legitimate sides of his business empire. Evenings together, all three of them sometimes when Raphael would join them for dinner and Sophie would chatter about her day. They hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed that line. But the tension was constant, electric, burning in every glance and accidental touch. Mia had never wanted anything as badly as she wanted Rafael Castillo, and the waiting was exquisite torture. Until the morning everything fell apart. Mia was in Rafael's home office organizing files when Marco burst through the door without knocking. "Boss, we have a situation." His face was grim. "The Volkovs just grabbed one of our shipments. They're holding the driver hostage." Rafael was on his feet instantly. Where? Warehouse district. They're demanding you come personally, alone. It's a trap, Raphael said flatly. Obviously. Marco pulled out his phone showing security footage. But they're sending us live feeds. The driver's family man, 2 kids. Mia's stomach turned as she caught a glimpse of the screen. A man tied to a chair, bleeding from a cut above his eye. Raphael's expression went cold and hard. Get everyone ready. We move in 20 minutes. Boss, I said get everyone ready. Marco left and Mia stood frozen, watching Raphael transform before her eyes. This was the man the underworld feared. This was Rafael Castillo, the Mafia boss, not Raphael who played with dinosaurs. You're going, she said quietly. I have to. He was already moving, pulling a gun from a locked drawer in his desk. Victor made this personal. Let me call the police. The police can't help with this. He loaded the gun with practiced efficiency. Mia, I need you to stay here. Keep Sophie inside. Marco's leaving men at the house. Raphael, please. He crossed to her in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. Listen to me. If something goes wrong, there's an envelope in the library safe. Code is Sophie's birthday. It has everything you'll need, money, documents, instructions. Marco will get you and Sophie out of New York. Don't. Tears burned her eyes. Don't talk like that. I need you to be smart right now, Bella. His thumb brushed her cheek. I need you to understand that I'm coming back, but if I don't, you're coming back. Mia grabbed his wrists, holding his hands against her face. You have to, because Sophie will be devastated, and Her voice broke. I can't lose you, not now. Raphael's eyes searched hers. Then he did what she'd been waiting weeks for him to do. He kissed her. It was fierce and desperate and achingly tender all at once. His lips moved against hers like he was memorizing the taste of her, like this might be the only chance he'd ever get. Mia kissed him back with everything she had, pouring all her fear and hope and love into it. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Raphael rested his forehead against hers. When I get back, he whispered, we're going to talk about this. When you get back, she agreed. He kissed her once more, quick and hard. Then he was gone. The next 4 hours were the longest of Mia's life. She tried to keep busy, playing with Sophie, reading, organizing things that didn't need organizing, but her mind was in that warehouse, imagining every terrible possibility. When her phone finally rang with an unknown number, her heart stopped. Hello? Miss Bennett. It was a voice she didn't recognize. Male, cold. Rafael Castillo is currently bleeding out in a warehouse. He has approximately 30 minutes before he dies. Mia's world tilted. What? The address is being texted to you now. Come alone, come unarmed, or he dies. The call disconnected. Mia stood frozen, staring at the phone. Then the text came through. An address. And a photo that made her blood run cold. Raphael slumped against a wall, blood soaking his white shirt. She should call Marco, should call the police, should do anything except what she was about to do. But they'd said, come alone. And Raphael was dying. She left Sophie with Maria, lying that Raphael needed her urgently, but everything was fine. Then she took one of the estate's cars, a BMW that didn't look like it belonged to anyone important, and drove. The warehouse was exactly as horrifying as she'd imagined. Abandoned, dark, smelling of rust and old violence. Mia's hands shook as she pushed open the door. Hello? She called. I'm here. I'm alone. So brave. Victor Kozlov emerged from the shadows, smiling that carved smile. And so stupid. Where is he? Upstairs, bleeding, unconscious. Victor circled her like a predator. Did you really think you could walk in here and save him? I thought I could try. Mia's voice was steadier than she felt. What do you want? Originally? Raphael's territory? His operations? Victor stopped in front of her. But now? I think I want to watch him lose something that matters. Watch him break. You won't break him by killing me. Mia lifted her chin. He barely knows me. Liar. Victor grabbed her arm and his grip was bruising. I've watched him for weeks. The way he looks at you, the way he protects you. He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. He'll destroy himself trying to save you. And that's exactly what I want. Let me see him, Mia demanded. You said he's dying. Let me see him first. Victor laughed but dragged her toward the stairs. Her mind raced. She had no weapon, no plan, just desperation and a love she'd barely admitted to herself. They climbed to the second floor, and there, slumped in the corner, was Raphael. Blood covered his shirt, his face was pale, but his eyes, His eyes were open and alert and furious when he saw her. "Mia," he gritted out. "No." "Romantic," Victor said mockingly. "Very touching." Mia tore free from his grip and ran to Raphael, dropping to her knees beside him. His shirt was soaked with blood from a wound in his side, but he was conscious. Alive. "Idiota," Raphael breathed. "I told you to stay home." "Since when do I listen?" Mia pressed her hands to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "We're getting you out of here." "Touching," Victor said. "Truly. But I think—" The explosion of gunfire cut him off. The windows shattered inward as dark figures repelled through them. Marco and Raphael's men, moving with lethal precision. Victor barely had time to reach for his gun before he was surrounded. Marco appeared at Mia's side, already on his radio calling for medical. "Boss, ambulance is 2 minutes out." "Mia," Raphael managed, his hand finding hers. Blood slicked between their fingers. "You beautiful, reckless—" "Save it," Mia said, tears streaming down her face. "You can yell at me later." "Not yelling." His grip tightened. "Thanking. You came for me." "Of course I came for you." She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. "I love you, you stubborn, dangerous, impossible man." Raphael's eyes went wide. Then he smiled, really smiled, beautiful and unguarded. "I love you too, Bella. From the wrong order. From the first moment." The paramedics arrived, and Mia was forced to step back as they worked on Raphael. They loaded him onto a stretcher, starting IV fluids, packing the wound. Marco guided her to a separate ambulance to get checked out, even though she protested she was fine. "He'll be okay," Marco said quietly. "Bastard's too stubborn to die." Mia laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. "He better be. I just told him I love him. He knows." Marco's scarred face softened into something almost like a smile. "We've all known for weeks." At the hospital, Mia refused to leave the surgical waiting room. She called Maria, confirmed Sophie was fine, and settled in to wait. 4 hours later, the surgeon emerged. "Mr. Castillo is stable. The bullet missed major organs. He'll need rest and recovery, but he should make a full recovery." Mia's legs nearly gave out with relief. They let her see him once he was settled in a private room. He looked pale against the white sheets, IVs running into his arms, but his eyes were clear when they found her. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey yourself." Mia took the chair beside his bed, lacing her fingers through his. "You scared me. You scared me more. Walking into that warehouse." His thumb stroked her knuckles. "Marco said you didn't call for backup. You just came. He was going to kill you. He was going to use you to break me." Raphael's expression darkened. "It would have worked. But it didn't." Mia leaned forward, careful not to jostle him. "We're both okay. Sophie's safe. Victor's in custody. Thanks to you." Raphael's hand tightened on hers. "Mia, you saved my life. If you hadn't come when you did, if you hadn't distracted him long enough for Marco to move, then it's good I didn't listen to you about staying home." He laughed, then winced. "Don't make me laugh. Hurts." "Sorry." She smiled through her tears. "Raphael, what I said in the warehouse—" "You meant it," he said. "And I meant what I said too. I love you. I've been in love with you since you brought me salmon instead of steak, and looked at me like I was worth your time." "Maybe fate got it right," Mia whispered, echoing his words from that first night. "Maybe it did." Raphael tugged her closer, and she carefully leaned down to kiss him. It was soft and sweet, and full of promise. "When I get out of here," he murmured against her lips, "I'm taking you and Sophie somewhere safe, somewhere far from Victor and the Volkovs and all of this." "Where?" "Anywhere you want, as long as we're together." Mia kissed him again, tasting salt from her own tears and the sweetness of relief. Together sounds perfect. 6 months later, Mia stood on the balcony of their villa in Tuscany, watching the sunset paint the vineyard-covered hills in shades of gold and amber. Behind her, through the open doors, she could hear Raphael and Sophie laughing as they attempted to make homemade pasta. From the sounds of it, Sophie was winning. The move had been surprisingly easy. Raphael had sold most of his operations, kept only the legitimate businesses, walked away from the dangerous world that had nearly killed them both. Victor was serving 20 years. The Volkov family had backed off after a negotiation Mia wasn't privy to and hadn't asked about. Now they lived here, in the Italian countryside. Raphael consulted for international shipping companies from home. Mia had started taking online classes in business management. Sophie was bilingual and thriving in the local school. It wasn't perfect. Some days Raphael still woke from nightmares about the warehouse. Some days Mia panicked when he was late coming home. But they were healing. Together. "Mommy," Sophie called. "Papa says the pasta is ready." Papa. Sophie had started calling Raphael that 3 months ago, and he'd cried. Actually cried, this powerful man who'd faced down mobsters, brought to his knees by a 4-year-old's trust. They were getting married next month. Small ceremony, just family and Marco, who'd become Raphael's right hand in his new legitimate ventures. Mia took one last look at the sunset, then went inside to her family. Raphael caught her around the waist as she passed, pulling her close for a kiss that still made her dizzy. "Happy?" he murmured. Deliriously. She smiled against his lips. Who knew a wrong order could change everything? "Best mistake I never made," Raphael said, "since technically you brought exactly what I needed." "What was that?" "You." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her nose. "Always you, Bella." Sophie made gagging noises. "Gross, the pasta's getting cold." They laughed and sat down to dinner together. The family they'd built from a chance encounter, a wrong order, and fate deciding maybe it knew better than any of them what they really needed. Mia looked around the table at her daughter, giggling with tomato sauce on her face, at Raphael, watching them both with unconcealed love in his eyes, at the life they'd built from ruins and danger and impossible hope. She'd brought the wrong order that night in the restaurant, and fate had gotten it exactly perfectly right. This story has reached its end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.